Hello, as the title suggests, I'll be here giving my take on getting better in a game like Valorant. I want to state I'm not the best Valorant player and haven't hit any crazy ranks when making this guide, but I've played quite a bit of shooters and think I can give some advice. While this game is different from other shooters, game sense and aim still carry over relatively speaking. This guide would be for newer players, but perhaps you can learn a thing or two even if you have played for a while. So I'll be going over two things today. I'll explain why getting good at killing enemies is a priority and not utility and agent abilities. I'm not saying that it's not important, but rather you should learn how to use your ability well after you can shoot your gun well. I'll also briefly explain things you need to get better at killing, as I'm sure there are plenty of guides out there already in detail, so it'll be just like a little recap. Secondly, the more important part of the video is actually how to develop game sense just by thinking the right way. So for newer players who get into the game, I imagine their first few games went something like this. You run and gun, not staying still, and you miss everything. You go 2-15 and your Valorant dreams are crushed. You then say this game sucks, or you suck, or both, and then uninstall. Or you kept playing and try to get better. But first, you gotta go to YouTube real quick and watch some character guides. How to be the best Omen, or how to be the best Sage, or whichever character you felt like. You learned some cool techniques and tricks, and then you got into a real game. It's time for redemption. And then it's match point. 1v1, you got all your cool tricks for your character, but you're against the 50-4 I miss or Jet. Even when you use your Util and know their exact location, you swing but with half your mag before you get insta-head tapped. We've all been there before, or at least seen it when spectating someone where you're just like, oh, yeah, we're cooked. Essentially, don't be that guy that makes your duo want to uninstall. So essentially, Util helps set you up for success, as it just raises your odds of winning a gunfight, whether directly such as blinding or flashing an enemy, or indirectly such as clearing out a space or gathering intel. But if you can't kill to save a life, well then it didn't matter. If you're nothing without the Util, maybe you shouldn't have it. So after getting duked on by a Jet, you look up how to aim in Valorant. Then you watch a guide, or a few guides, or maybe all the guides. So I'll just summarize the important parts you should learn, get good at, or have already learned. 1. Stop moving when shooting, because TLDR, you are hella inaccurate if you do. There will be certain scenarios or weapons which you totally could, such as using a Phantom, Spectre, Stinger, Frenzy, and crouch spraying while moving. This leads to strafe shooting, where you shoot right when you stop, but what most people don't know is you can actually do it while moving, as you can see here. This is really nice as it becomes much harder to hit in general. The third point would be learning how to not look at toes and have good crosshair placement. Essentially, having your crosshair next to their face is much easier than flicking from their toes. After that, you gotta learn how to control recoil. While tapping heads is much more effective and efficient in game, unless you're a gamer, many of your kills will result from sprays, so get good at it. To practice, please don't be like 6 meters away like most other guides tell you to do. This literally does nothing. The closer you are, the easier it is, so give yourself some distance. But also keep in mind, once you're further away in a real game, you will want to burst fire or tap. Or if you want to full on spray, then that's up to you. But for the most part, this is just for practice if you're spraying out of range. But something to know is that in Valorant, spraying sucks. It really sucks. The main thing with rifles is just to pull down to the left and then to the right generally. Unfortunately, the time it takes the recoil to switch direction is completely random. It's just somewhere near the middle of the mag. So even if you have perfect muscle memory, the game will fuck it up if it really felt like it. Lastly, don't ADS with SMGs and rifles in most scenarios. This is excluding if you're holding a long and tight angle or just really far away. Like ADS with the rifles besides the Bulldog, and spraying really sucks in this game because it's just really inaccurate and it doesn't even really follow your crosshair. It still has bloom. Okay, now that you're next tens with your aim, the question is how to get the brain. This is called game sense and refers to a player's understanding of the game, blah blah blah, some other stuff. But what we're looking for is the player's ability to predict what will happen next and when it would happen. In my opinion, the best way to think is to separate your thinking into two parts. The first, which most people probably already do, is just ask themselves, well, what is my best play? And essentially, you just look at your current situation and assess the options that you have, and then just choose the one that's most favorable for you. Now, let's imagine we're on Ascent as Gecko, and our teammate was going lane, and then he dies by Cypher. At this point, it's a 1-on-1, and we're presented with two options. Well, first, we could try to kill Cypher, but he's in his own home, so with his traps and his camera, there's a high chance that we could lose. But the second option is we could just rotate over to A and plant the bomb. At that point, we'll get another ult charge, and then at this point, Cypher has to come to us and fight us. At that point, we also have an advantage. As you can see, simple logic. Next example, say you're in a 1v2 defending your plant. You heard a guy main, but also heard someone stomping heaven. So, what do? Well, in my opinion, there's three options, so let's go through all three. The first is do nothing and just wait. So, this is the worst option, as you can get collapsed on by both enemies, and you'll get pinched and shot in the back and just die. So, let's say we decide to isolate a fight and go for Cypher next. Well, there's only two places we can play. If we went here to challenge Cypher, well, we'd just get shot by Jet. Clearly that doesn't work. So what happens if we try to challenge him right here? Well, Cypher could stall for time and just poke at us, but not actually hit us, as we both would have a difficult time hitting each other. At that point, Jet could just walk over and just kill us. So this leads to the last option, and probably your best play, and that's to kill Jet first and then wait for Cypher. So why would this be the best play? Well, if you were to isolate the fight with Jet and kill their main, and Cypher's up here, he has to drop down. One, it would make noise, and two, while he's dropping, he can't necessarily shoot you, as he'll be super inaccurate mid-air. As such, at that point, it's just a 50-50 coin toss, and if you're the better player, you should be able to win. But also, while he's dropping, you could catch him mid-air and just drop him then. But as you can see, you just run through the different scenarios in your head and choose the one that would in theory have the highest success rate. Of course, it doesn't always work out, but it doesn't change the fact that it would be your best option. I said earlier that we should separate our thinking into two different parts. So what's the second? Well, it would just be the opposite. This is where you ask yourself, what is my opponent's best play? So how do you figure this out? Essentially, just ask yourself, well, if I was the opponent, what would I do in their shoes? So imagine we're back in Ascent and we're Omen, this time on Catwalk, but our entire team died in Tree, dropping the bomb at a really bad spot. So we understand it's a 1v2, but we don't know where the enemy's at. This is where we go, well, if I was the enemy, where would I probably be playing? Well, if I was them, I don't think I'll be playing Tree, as there's 3 different angles and it'll be a bit difficult to watch. So rather, I'd probably try to find a further angle where I could play watching the bomb at a safer distance. So I'll probably be somewhere in front of a site or near main, or I'll be in Guardian instead. But there's also a chance where the enemies do double up if they really felt like it though. But for this scenario, I'll just assume they are separate. So going back to our scenario, what could we necessarily do? Well, if we had the time, we could totally go all the way around like this, or like this, and potentially catch someone off guard. But let's just assume that we just want to brute force it and grab Spike and dip. Well, as the Omen, what we could do is just, well, smoke off one of the entrances. And then at that point, we just challenge whoever or whichever entrance wasn't smoked off. At that point, it's a 1-on-1. And then either, well, the enemy was doubled up and we just gotta fight it. Or the enemy crosses the smoke and at that point, you gotta fight it again. But for the most part, that would have been our best strategy. But what you could have also done is if you smoked the bomb itself, you could have potentially grabbed the bomb and TP out and then you can just dip. But maybe if you had your ult, maybe you could just go to B site and just TP, grab the bomb, go back and plan. But it just really depends on the scenario. As you can see, by understanding our and the enemy's best play, plus the process of elimination, we will have an easier time making the right choice. The best play is also generally the most obvious play, like why wouldn't I do that if it helps me win? This is why quote-unquote bad plays work. You just don't expect it. They'll hide in a stupid corner or hold the weirdest angle and just catch you off guard. If this does happen, well, fool me once, shame on you. Fool me 4 times in a row, it's definitely my fault. As such, Sometimes picking a weird or not optimal play can actually be the best option, but you just need to develop your own formula, test it out, and adapt. That's how, in my opinion, game sense is formed, by understanding not only yourself, but the enemy. After that, you just gotta play more and get good. And that's that. Hopefully that was an informative video, and thanks for watching.